What was the most horrific case of neglect you went through as a child? My mom pulled me out of daycare on the spot one day when I was 3 years old. I had been in that daycare for at least half a year with no issue, until one day Mom came to pick me up and she could tell I had been crying. She said I had that sort of face where it was clear I had been crying for hours. Mom asked the teacher in my class why I had been crying and was told that I'd been fine all day. As it's an isolated incident at this point, Mom lets it go and takes me home. When we got home though, I started crying again. Heavy crying for hours until I passed out. I can't even imagine what must have been going through her mind. I was 3, so I could speak, but I was unable to properly articulate what was upsetting me. The next day my mom comes after work to pick me up from daycare. She sees the same thing. I'd clearly been crying for hours, and my class teacher had no knowledge or account of it. She then goes to the daycare's director to talk about what's going on with me, and is told she's fine when she's here. It must be something going on at home. Here's that the director was a friend of my maternal grandmother, and the director's daughter was a good friend of hers in high school. Due to that, Mom was inclined to trust her, and it all fed right into her insecurities and guilt as a single working parent. So for the next several weeks, the same thing is happening every day, and Mom is sick with worry and guilt about whatever it could be that is clearly traumatizing me. I don't know what specifically got her suspicious, maybe one of her gut feelings, but she finally came up with a plan. She was close by at work and decided to call the daycare on her lunch break. Since she worked nearby, she decided to call the daycare during her lunch break. She didn't want to seem paranoid, but something inside her told her that something was wrong. The phone rang a few times before someone picked up. My mom asked to speak with my teacher, but she was told that she was busy. Instead, the daycare director took the call, and my mom, trying to sound casual, asked how I was doing. "Oh, she's doing great. Playing and having fun as always," the director replied in that professional, reassuring tone. My mom felt a brief moment of relief, but there was still a weight in her chest. She hesitated for a moment before asking, "And how was lunch today?" "Oh, the kids love the cookies. They always ask for more." My mom frowned. She paid a high fee for this daycare and clearly remembered the promise of balanced meals. So why was I only eating cookies? That question lingered in her mind for the rest of the day. When it was time to pick me up, she decided to leave work a little early and show up unannounced. When she walked in, she saw kids scattered around the room, holding stale cookies and cups of watered-down juice. Some of them were chewing slowly, without enthusiasm. Others just seemed to accept it as normal. But then she saw something different. At the back of the room, at a small separate table, sat the director's daughters. In front of them were plates filled with rice, meat, and vegetables. They were eating peacefully, as if nothing was out of the ordinary. My mom's stomach turned. She walked over slowly, trying to contain the fury rising inside her. When she reached me, she saw that I was holding a piece of limp cookie. My expression was blank. She crouched down and asked softly, "Do you eat only cookies every day?" I simply nodded. My mom stood up, turned to the director, and asked, her voice carefully controlled, "Why do some kids eat cookies while others get a hot meal?" The director gave an awkward smile. "Well, the kids love the cookies. We've never had complaints." "That doesn't answer my question," my mom said, her voice firm. One of the director's daughters, who looked a year or two older than me, glanced at my mom with disdain and said, "Poor kids don't need good food." My mom froze. She looked at the girl, then at the director, expecting her to correct her daughter. But the woman just gave a tense smile and put a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Oh, you know how kids are," the director said with a small laugh. My mom clenched her fists. "Who taught her that?" The director cleared her throat and tried to change the subject. "Look, if you're unhappy, we can discuss this another time." "No, we're talking now. Are you telling me that my daughter and these other children are being fed scraps while your daughters get full meals?" "They're not scraps," the director protested. "They're snacks." My mom let out a dry laugh. "And why don't your daughters eat these snacks then?" The director didn't respond. That's when my mom noticed something else. Some of the children had bruises on their arms, small purple marks. Her stomach dropped. She looked at me again, more closely. I had a similar bruise on my wrist. "What happened here?" she asked, trying to stay calm. I avoided her gaze. She crouched down and gently took my face in her hands. "Who did this?" I didn't answer, but I glanced, just for a second, at the director's daughters, who were smirking at me. My mom slowly stood up, feeling rage course through her veins. "Are your daughters hitting the kids here?" The director crossed her arms. "They're just kids playing." "Playing? Does this look like playing to you?" My mom raised my arm, showing the bruise. The director let out a nervous laugh. "Kids get hurt all the time." My mom couldn't believe what she was hearing. She looked around at the caregivers, hoping one of them would say something, but they all avoided her eyes. She took a deep breath, tried to keep her composure. "If this happens again, I will take action," she warned. The director kept that fake smile. Of course. We'll make sure everything is fine." My mom grabbed my backpack and carried me out of the room. I clung to her tightly. That night, my mom stayed up for hours sitting at the edge of my bed, watching me sleep. Her heart was heavy. She knew she couldn't keep me there much longer. But she also knew that, alone, with a demanding job, finding a solution wouldn't be easy. One thing was certain, though, she wasn't going to let this go. That night, my mother couldn't sleep. She kept tossing and turning in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling her anger growing inside her. The image of the director's daughters eating full meals while I and the other children chewed on stale cookies wouldn't leave her mind. And worse, the bruises on my arms, the fearful looks on some of the children's faces, the silence of the caregivers. She knew this couldn't go on, but she also knew that if she acted alone, the director would find a way to cover everything up. She needed allies. The next morning, after dropping me off at the daycare, something that broke her heart, but she had no immediate alternative, she picked up the phone and started calling other mothers. Some were acquaintances, others she had only seen in passing at drop-off and pickup. Some listened attentively, while others hesitated, perhaps unwilling to believe that something so serious was happening. I know it sounds unbelievable, but I'm telling you the truth. The director's daughters get full meals while our kids are only given cookies. And it's not just that. There are children with bruises, and no one is saying anything. The initial reaction was mixed. Some mothers were skeptical, while others fell silent, thinking. But my mother was persistent. She arranged a meeting that evening at a nearby cafe, insisting they come and at least hear her out. "If after this you still think I'm overreacting, that's fine. But at least come listen." That night, at the cafe, the mothers arrived one by one. Some looked concerned, while others were clearly doubtful. My mother waited until they were all there and then began to lay out everything she knew, down to the smallest detail. She talked about the food, the bruises, how the director ignored complaints and protected her daughters. She described confronting the director and how the woman had laughed it off and tried to change the subject. When she finished speaking, there was a moment of silence. The mothers looked at each other, processing what they had just heard. Then, one of them, Patricia, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. "My son always comes home starving. He tells me he ate at daycare, but the moment we get home, he begs for food. I thought it was just a phase." Another mother, Carla, looked at my mother with wide eyes. "You said the kids have bruises? My daughter has had marks on her arms for weeks." I asked the teacher, and she said it was just from playing too rough. The murmurs began. It was as if, suddenly, everything was clicking into place. Little things each mother had noticed but never put together. "My son says some kids are the bosses and that if they upset them, they get in trouble," another mother added. "My daughter once told me one of the director's daughters pushed a boy to the ground, and no one did anything," another chimed in. The frustration in the room grew. What had started as skepticism had turned into outrage. My mother knew they had to act before the director caught on and tried to cover her tracks. "We need a plan. If we go to her one by one, she'll deny everything. If we try to report her without solid proof, it might not go anywhere. But what can we do?" Carla asked. My mother looked at the group and took a deep breath. "We get proof." The mothers exchanged glances. Some still seemed unsure, but others were fully on board. "My husband can come with me when we pick up our daughter. He's a lawyer. Maybe he can spot something we can use against her," Patricia suggested. "My brother is a journalist. If we get real evidence, he can help expose this," another mother added. "What if we talk to the caregivers?" Carla suggested. "Some of them always look uncomfortable. I bet they know something but are too scared to speak up." My mother nodded. "All right, here's what we'll do. Tomorrow, some of us will show up early to pick up our kids, without warning. We'll watch everything. If we can, we'll record what we see. What if she gets suspicious? Then we move fast. The important thing is to show that this isn't just one angry mother. It's all of us." One mother, who had been silent the entire time, sighed and murmured, "Our children don't deserve this. None of them do." My mother nodded firmly. "And that's exactly why we're going to put a stop to it." The plan was set. Tomorrow, the director wouldn't have anywhere to hide. The next day, my mother woke up with a strange feeling in her chest. Something inside her told her that simply showing up early at the daycare to observe wouldn't be enough. The director already suspected her, and if the caregivers were warned, they could cover things up before anyone saw anything suspicious. It was risky. She knew they needed something more concrete. something the director couldn't deny. That's when she had an idea. That morning, before heading to work, she called Carla, one of the mothers who had attended the cafe meeting. "We need to change the plan," she said bluntly. "What do you mean?" Carla asked, sounding concerned. "If we just show up early, they might cover everything up. But what if we get a recording? Something that shows exactly what happens when no adults are watching." Carla was silent for a few seconds. "How will we do that? None of us can stay inside all day." "A camera. We put a small camera inside one of the kids' backpacks. They never check the backpacks. They sit there all day. If we position it right, we can see everything without anyone noticing." Another moment of silence. Then Carla sighed deeply. "I have one. My husband bought a small camera to monitor our dog when we're not home. We can use it." My mother felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "Could you put in your son's backpack today?" "Yes. He's small. He won't even notice." "But what if they find it?" "They won't. And even if they do later, we'll already have the footage. This is going to take her down." Carla agreed. And just like that, the plan was set in motion. That afternoon, Carla carefully prepared her son's backpack. She hid the small camera between his things, making sure the lens had a clear view of the surroundings. She checked 3 times to make sure it was securely placed and wouldn't fall out during the day. At the daycare, she handed the backpack to her son with a smile, trying to act normal. "Have a great day, sweetheart. Be good, okay?" she said as if it were just another day. She watched as her son walked inside without any issues. Now, all they could do was wait. My mother and Carla spent the day restless, checking their phones over and over, hoping everything would go as planned. Finally, when pickup time arrived, Carla retrieved her son's backpack. Her heart was pounding. As soon as she got home, she called my mother. "I have the backpack. Now let's see what we got." My mother rushed over to Carla's house, and together they connected the camera to the computer. The first few minutes seemed normal, kids playing, some chatting. But as the minutes passed, the footage started to reveal the truth. At first, it was subtle. The caregivers completely ignored some children while giving exclusive attention to the director's daughters. Then, it became more obvious. One of the director's daughters shoved a smaller boy, who fell to the ground crying, and no one intervened. The caregivers looked the other way as if nothing had happened. The camera also captured mealtime. The regular children were given the same old stale cookies and watered-down juice, while the director's daughters were served full plates of hot food: rice, meat, fresh vegetables. They ate peacefully, separated from the others. And then came the worst part. In one clip, a caregiver grabbed a little girl by the arm roughly, dragging her to her seat with force. The child whimpered, and the woman squeezed harder, leaving a red mark on her skin. Later, in another scene, a boy tried to take a toy from one of the director's daughters and was violently shoved backward. He fell, hitting his back against the wall, and started crying. No one did anything. Not a single caregiver intervened. My mother and Carla sat frozen, watching the footage with their hearts sinking. This is disgusting," Carla whispered, her eyes welling with tears. "Now we have proof," my mother said, taking a deep breath to control her rage. "This woman is not getting away with it." They knew this recording was enough to take the director down. But now, the question was, what would be their next move? That night, my mother, Carla, and the other mothers knew there was no turning back. They had undeniable proof of everything happening at that daycare. Now it was time to seek justice. No child deserved to be treated that way. No mother should have to pay a high fee only for her child to be neglected, hungry, and mistreated. The first step was to take everything to the police. They gathered the videos, screenshots of conversations, and even testimonies from some of the older children who could describe what they had endured. Carla, still shaking with anger, typed a message in the mother's group chat. "This is it. Anyone who can, meet me at the police station. We need to file this report together." Seconds later, phones started vibrating with replies. "On my way. My husband is coming too. I'll be there in 10 minutes. That same night, a group of over 10 mothers arrived at the police station, ready to make the report. When the officer on duty saw the videos, his face hardened. "This is horrifying." He called an investigator over and ordered that everything be officially logged. Within minutes, the case had been escalated into a formal investigation. "We're going to need more testimonies," the officer said. "This is serious." "We'll get them," my mother replied firmly. "We can bring in more mothers, maybe even some former employees. I'm sure some of them have seen what's happening, but were too afraid to speak." The officer nodded. "If we can gather more testimonies, the investigation will move faster. But I'll tell you right now, based on what I'm seeing, this daycare won't be open much longer." They left the station feeling some relief, but they knew it wasn't enough. A legal case could take time. The director could try to manipulate the situation, shift the blame onto the caregivers, or claim it was all a misunderstanding. They needed to make the truth public. That's when Carla had another idea. What if we post the videos on social media? My mother hesitated for a moment. Do you think that would help? Absolutely, Carla said, already unlocking her phone. If this story spreads, no one will ever trust her again. Even if she tries to deny it, no family will want to leave their kids in her care. One of the mothers, whose brother was a journalist, pulled out her phone and started sending messages. I'll see if we can publish something. If we can get the news out there, she won't be able to hide. Minutes later, the response came. The journalist wanted the videos, testimonies, and any other evidence they had. And within 24 hours, a shocking news article was published with the title, Elite Daycare Accused of Child Neglect and Abuse. Director's daughters receive special treatment while others suffer. The story spread like wildfire. The video was shared thousands of times in just a few hours. Social media exploded with outrage. People across the city started tagging the daycare, demanding explanations. Some mothers who had their children enrolled there, completely unaware of what had been happening, began withdrawing their kids and demanding refunds. The director tried to fight back. At first, she released a statement claiming it was all a misunderstanding, that the videos were taken out of context, and that the mothers were overreacting. But no one believed her. The pressure kept building. City inspectors arrived unannounced for an emergency inspection, and they found even more violations, from poor quality food to major safety hazards. It didn't take long. Within a week, the daycare was permanently shut down. But that wasn't all. The district attorney took on the case, and the director was officially charged with negligence, fraud, and child abuse. She was summoned to court, where she tried to argue that she didn't know what was happening, that it was the caregiver's fault. But the videos spoke for themselves. The mother's lawyers demanded compensation. They had paid premium prices for a service they never received. Our children had suffered, and it was time for accountability. The judge ruled that the daycare had to pay a massive fine to all the affected families. My mother and the others received financial compensation for everything our children had endured. And the director? She was convicted and held criminally responsible, but she avoided jail by paying an outrageous bail amount. Still, that didn't save her. With the daycare closed down and her reputation completely destroyed, she was never able to open another business in education. People recognized her in public, whispered about her, avoided her. Years later, she tried to start over, but the damage was already done. She thought she could get away with it. She was wrong. As for us, we moved forward. After everything, my mother found a new daycare for me, one where I was treated with dignity and care. I never went hungry again. I was never ignored or mistreated. And, more than anything, I learned a lesson that I will carry for life. Injustice only wins when no one fights back. But when people stand together, the truth always prevails. Today, many years later, I look back and see the lasting impact that whole experience had on my life and on so many other families. The daycare was shut down, the director never recovered her reputation, and we all moved on. But the most important thing that came out of it wasn't just justice. It was the bond that was created among the mothers. The women who once barely acknowledged each other at pickup time became close friends. My mother and Carla, for example, are still incredibly close. At first, their conversations often revolve around what had happened, the outrage, the legal battles, the fight they had fought together. But over time, their friendship grew into something much deeper. Now, they meet regularly, whether for coffee, to help each other through life's challenges, or just to catch up. That group of mothers, who once exchanged tired glances while waiting for their kids, became an unbreakable support system. I grew up knowing this story. My mother never hid it from me, and I think that made all the difference in how I see the world. I learned from an early age that not every adult deserves blind trust, that not every authority figure is honest, and most importantly, that when people stand together for a just cause, they can break down any barrier. Many of the kids who went to that daycare with me also grew up hearing about what happened. Some of us still keep in touch. Others have gone in different directions, but there's an invisible bond between us. We went through something that shaped our childhood. We were victims of a system that failed us, but we also witnessed something powerful. Our mothers refused to stay silent. And the director? Well, every now and then, I still hear about her. She tried to start a new business somewhere far away, but she never regained people's trust. Her name remains tainted, And while she avoided jail by paying a ridiculous amount of money, her real punishment was losing all credibility. My mother, on the other hand, became a source of strength and guidance for many women who have faced similar injustices. After what happened, she became involved in initiatives to protect children, helping other mothers recognize the signs of abuse and neglect in schools and daycare centers. If she once felt guilty for working long hours and not noticing what was happening to me, she now uses that experience to prevent other families from going through the same thing. And me? Today, I'm an adult, living my own life, but I carry this story with me as a constant reminder of what truly matters. I know that if I ever have children, I will do everything in my power to make sure they never experience what I did. And if I ever witness something wrong happening, I won't stay silent. Because I learned from my mother and from all those women that injustice only wins when people choose not to fight. And when they choose to fight together, nothing can stop them.